Okay, I'm so excited. This is the beginning of season 4, and my team has pushed me to do video, and I'm so excited because you get to meet my beautiful guest today, Patrick Crane. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him and this video thing, Patrick. It's new for me, so we're getting we have to grow, and the only way we grow is getting out of that comfort zone. So my foot is right out of that comfort zone today. So laughter, bloopers, everything's permitted on this show. Any kind of witty candor. So first of all, a huge shout out to Steve Cadigan because he was on the show. And when we stopped recording, he said, "You need to meet my friend Patrick. He's got to be on your show." So I don't want to say your biography because I believe it's our own right as people to tell our story. You are the Chief Experience Officer of OpenSolar. I haven't had a CXO on the show, so I know our listenership, which is in 65 countries, and we're very proud of that. Tell them a little bit about what you do as a CXO and a little bit about OpenSolar, and then we'll get into our interview. How does that sound?
That sounds fine, Deb. CXO, well, put really simply, it is a job that's responsible for the experience your customers have. And it's holistic. It's end-to-end from the moment they hear about you to the experience they have of signing up and procuring your product or using it, all the way through to this kind of support they get. And the kind of feeling they walk away with. So it's a pretty end-to-end job, involves lots of different pieces. And OpenSolar generally is a software platform that is provided free of charge to solar installers all over the world. And it's designed to help them design and sell solar much, much faster. Because as we all know, there are climate targets we have to hit and solar adoption needs to speed up. So put simply, that's what OpenSolar does.
And it's got to be rewarding to work for such a company, given what we're seeing in the world and how we're trying to fight climate change. And I just think that's fascinating. And I'm sure it's going to come up in our leadership questions. So my first leadership question is, as a C-suite leader, you have worked, I did my due diligence on you. You have worked in 5 markets on 3 continents for 25 years of experience. Share with us the richness that you feel that you bring in transferable skills to your current role as a C-suite leader at OpenSolar.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that curiosity has to be kind of something that I've always aspired to have, and I think I have. I like to understand complex situations. I like to understand, really love to understand why people do what they do, why they think the way they think, the decisions that they make, and try to get to the bottom of that. And then try to design products and experiences and things around them that will have an impact in their lives. And I learned that super early on back at Vodafone in the UK. And I've tried to sort of carry that forward through my career. So that's a big one.
The other thing too is I think there's a misconception that leaders gain all this wisdom and the wisdom and experience is attached to your title. So I love that you lean into curiosity because it leads nicely into my next question. Do you believe that as a leader, regardless of the level, that it's important to bring in that awe and wonder aligned with curiosity to keep learning? And if you don't, a complacency can easily set in. So can you talk a little bit to that over the span of the career you've had for 25 years?
Yeah, sure. But I think you hit a really good point a moment there, because it doesn't matter what kind of leader you are. You can be a leader in an individual contributor role and 2 years into your career, or you can be kind of towards the end of your career like I am. So I just wanted to pick up on that and say, well done for pointing that out. I think that complacency is a problem. And when we got so much information coming at us, we tend to sort of say, well, this is my reality. This is what I understand. And I'm going to stick within this because it's comfy and it's real and it's certain. And I'm going to base all my decisions on the reality that I've constructed for myself. But that's a trap. And you just have to be ready to be proven wrong and open to be proven wrong. And that sort of demands curiosity. You have to be prepared to second guess every assumption that you've made, and you have to also be prepared to let really, really capable people in your teams second guess you, right? As CXO, I don't get to talk to solar professionals every day, but my team members talk to, 10, 15 a day. And I never assume anything. I can't, right? Because I'm just one layer removed from what's going on. I think that having that sort of curiosity and desire to know is mission critical.
I think the other thing that I find fascinating is CEOs either get comfortable or super uncomfortable with saying, I don't know. And you just made such a great point. The whole premise of C-suite leaders is to surround themselves with a team that has the expertise in the areas that they don't and lead them, but still lean in with awe and wonder and curiosity. And I love the vulnerability of C-suites when they do say, I don't know. Let's find out together. Let's go do some research. I think it's just a reinstatement or a renewal of culture on an ongoing basis when a C-suite can do that. Do you find that something that you do on a regular basis, given the example you just gave about your 15 team members and you are one layer removed? Is that something that comes easy to you?
Yeah, I think so. Leaders still have to sort of put a position forward and say, hey, I think we should go over here. What do you think? So I don't think, I've never been one to sort of sit around a table and just have kind of a community discussion. I think leadership does involve saying, I've taken all this input. I think this is the direction, but I think a really good trick for leaders is to then say, am I right about this? Or is this wrong? And come on, everybody, let's have at it. Let's tear it down if we need to. Open to a better idea, but make people feel as though their expertise counts, that their years of experience count for something, and that they feel free and able to tear stuff down and say, actually, I disagree and I think this part's wrong or it's all wrong. So yeah, it's hard sometimes because you pride yourself in trying to do a good job. You pride yourself in having become an executive. And so there's always a little bit of ego in there saying, well, I know things, but the truth is you never know everything. So you have to just create an environment where they can pull stuff apart, and you have to be okay with that.
Well, and you've just really done a beautiful job of setting the stage of having a meeting that has a premise or foundation of psychological safety. Mm-hmm. And I think there's nothing better than a C-suite leader with humility that's like, okay, what's your opinion? What works? What doesn't work? But tell me why. And wanting that other vantage point, I think that's humility at its best. I love that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Deb, I will say just to be fair, this is not something that I've always had, right? I've learned the hard way. I didn't used to do that. I used to sort of say, this is the direction. And I would feel sometimes I'd feel annoyed that people had different points of view. And I'd get frustrated with the extra time that it took to get everyone's perspective. And, it's not something I've always done well. I have regrets about not having done that earlier in my career, but I've just, like you said, learned over 25 years. This is the way to do it.
And I think most C-suites can say that. It segues nice into my next question. My next question has been on the show since episode 1, Leader 1. What imperfections do you feel that Patrick brings to his heart-centered leadership?
Yeah, I have always struggled with kind of impatience. I think I can see the answer, and I just want everyone to get around. You get on board and let's go for it. And I'm always conscious of the watch ticking, the clock ticking, time going by, and so I've struggled with that my whole career. And so I remember Steve Cadigan and I met during the early LinkedIn years before we got really, really big. And he brought a ton of that sort of insight to me around being able to build a team that felt empowered, to have those ideas.
And it's such a psychologically safe place. And I think it's a well-learned, seasoned, experienced C-suite that gets there. And I often joke, I had a CEO say to me this week, sometimes it's okay to eat humble pie. I'm not my title. I'm not my stature. At the end of the day, I'm, a husband, a family man. I'm a dad. I'm a grandpa. Like I wear lots of different hats. And if I keep striving on the perfection highway, I'm going to finally realize that it's always been an intangible reality. And I thought that was super powerful. So I love your honesty and humility to say it's been a learned kind of lesson for you. And I think anybody in leadership, if we're talking about climbing the proverbial ladder, I think everybody has a story like that. I think that's what makes us all relatable as human beings.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the trick is to remember where you've messed up and then say, well, how can I do this differently?
Yeah.
To your point about vulnerability and family, OpenSolar is, what are we now? 75 people, growing really, really fast, distributed all around the world. A lot of young people in the team, which makes me feel super old per our discussion before we got going today. But some of them are starting to have families. And part of the vulnerability I try to show is that, my kids are teenagers, but I'm still completely committed to them. And I'll take meetings from the car and I'll say, hey, I'm sorry I had to run my daughter to horse riding or whatever it is. And I think if you sort of present the sort of balance that you're always trying to strike, then they're going to feel that it's okay to also be vulnerable and share that they're trying to juggle multiple balls, raise a family, that kind of thing. And so if you can practice family first, then they're going to feel like they can do it too. And they can have some balance in their career when they're working in your teams,
Well, it's like anything else at your level of leadership or any level of leadership. If you model that that's okay, and you also add in self-care, and we're not meant to work, a gazillion hours a week and run ourselves into stress and fatigue and burnout.
Right.
I think that's a great leader that they can say, I'm going to go do this, or not taking your holidays and letting them add up, or not taking a sick day, or we all have trauma and loss in our life. And if we have a leader who models that and understands it, there's not an apprehension to say, I need to go and do this.
Yeah, I fully agree. And, to bring this down to kind of practical things that maybe the listeners might find useful. One thing I've just gotten so much joy out of at OpenSolar is, there was a time a few weeks ago, teams were feeling it. They were feeling the pressure, big numbers, had to hit them. And so I created this little Slack channel. Slack's a huge thing for us at OpenSolar. And I created a Slack channel called OpenSolar Wellbeing. And I encourage people to just put things in there, say, hey, I'm taking a 10-minute walk. I'm having a glass of water. I'm doing this, that, and the other. And the leadership all participates in that. And so people say, I took 15 minutes to walk my dog. Look at the view. And there's actually right now, there's a hydration challenge going on where people are trying to outdrink each other with water just through the day. So sometimes it's just little things where you are visibly kind of investing and participating, and like you said, kind of setting a bit of an example. But with the other thing that we implemented just on well-being was Open Day. We did this at LinkedIn as well. Steve and I and a guy called Steve Sordello worked on this concept to have one Friday every month free for you to do whatever's been on your mind, however you want to take care of yourself and do something on top of all your holidays. So it's 12 extra days on top of the holiday allocation. But at OpenSolar, we call it Open Day, and it's open to you to do whatever you want with. And so again, actively posting, hey, I used my Open Day to do this. I didn't actually sit at my desk and catch up on work. I was out there too. I got out in the open. I did this. I took a bike ride. I went out and did this. So all these are sort of practical examples of kind of trying to walk the talk and sort of informally providing permission to all the teams to say, this is good, this is okay. And they're doing it, so I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be proud of it.
Yeah, and you know what I love about that is it's like the hydration day.
Yeah.
It's like a informal team building exercise. And who doesn't love a little bit of competition? And everybody's getting their hydration in. So it's a whole nuance of corporate wellness. Because when I was case managing, corporate wellness always had the negative connotation of mitigating the claims and how do we get the people back to work? And now we're front loading it in how do we look after our people, not even just from a retention standpoint, but like you talked about at the beginning, your leadership is holistic. You are leading that whole person on your team. So when they need to lean in and have an open day and it's not open day, that's going to be okay. And they're going to be vulnerable, but have no fear to come to you to say, Patrick, I need to have this day and this is why. Because you've allowed that psychologically safe environment and culture. And I think that's powerful.
Yeah. I think that we've had a handful of terrifically talented people at OpenSolar in the past year say, hey, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with mental health. I'm having this or that issue. And I think you're right, Deb, that when they do that, that's actually an encouraging sign that, together with the other execs, we've kind of created that environment where they can literally just come to you and say, hey, I'm struggling. And they are not trying to say, hey, I want less work, I want less responsibility. They're literally just being vulnerable and saying, I'm struggling, I don't have an answer. Can I get some help?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's working well. But the fun thing I'll say is that I think the productivity of this team, despite I think it's 4 weeks of holiday a year, plus 12 extra days open day, plus all the sick days and all the other things. I haven't seen any productivity loss, and we've had zero regrettable losses at the company over the 2 years that we've been building this up. So it works. I'm a firm believer in it.
You've created a healthy, vital culture, and it's thriving. You're not losing any progression. And there's nothing better than when a leader can say, somebody came to me today and said, I'm struggling. The trust and rapport for a person to come to someone at that level and share that conversation, to me, is priceless. And for them to lean in and what do you need? How can I help? It's really starting to really change across the globe. And like I said, corporate wellness has taken on a whole new face.
Yeah, I think you're right. And just to give you an example, obviously not quoting names, but a really talented guy on the team was extra apprehensive about coming forward and sharing what he was going through because in a prior role, he had done that and got demoted as a result. So he was extra apprehensive, but he still came forward, and I can guarantee you his career is thriving now.
Well, you know what? Sometimes it's just having the right leader at the helm, right?
Hope so.
So my last leadership question is kind of fun. If I came back and asked the younger Patrick, let's say the 20, 25-year-old Patrick, if you were going to have a conversation with the younger version of Patrick today, what would you share in terms of lessons and experiences and maybe things that the younger version of Patrick worried about?
Yeah, the one thing leaps to mind, and that is be in the moment and stop overthinking things. I was constantly obsessed with what was next, what was future, what was coming, and not just in my professional life, but my personal life as well. Really, really bad at living in the moment and appreciating things for where they were. A great manager I had back in my Yahoo days, actually, back in the Yahoo heyday, a guy by the name of David Remus took me aside one day and he said, he goes, I want you to just get up in the morning, have a delicious cup of coffee and just think, this is a good day. Like, what a delicious cup of coffee that was. And I laughed at him at the time and teased him about it. But now I see the wisdom in it. It's just a simple idea, right? But you just need to be in the moment and appreciate things for the way they are. And I honestly think my career would have gone better if I'd done that, because I would have been more attentive to opportunities in the here and now, not what was over the next hill, So I think that would be the main thing. And kind of with that, I'd say that, with that, I would say just a greater appreciation of the people around me. The older me would have said to the younger me, take more time to acknowledge your teammates, not people on your team, but just the people around you who are doing a kick-ass job. People need that. And, and the sort of high-paced tech environment that I've spent my career in, most people don't do that. They don't just say, hey, I'm recognizing you today because you did this fantastic job. LinkedIn had this feature. We launched this feature like way back in the early days where you could just do the @ in someone's name and just tag someone and say, hey, I'm appreciating this person today. So LinkedIn obviously lets you do it publicly, but whether you do it publicly or whether you just do it on Slack one-to-one or an email or just in a small group setting, is to just appreciate people more and recognize the incredible job they're doing. So those are probably the two things the old me would have told younger me.
Well, and I just going back to that Slack example, so many of the companies that I'm working with around the globe have done a similar thing. And it's a millisecond of time, but it has huge return on investment. And it's the connectivity, it's the pride of water or whatever it may be. Like you said, you have lots of different things going on. But at the end of the day, it comes down to one thing, and we all want to be seen and heard and validated. And it doesn't matter how it's done. The modality is not the important part here. When somebody recognizes something that you did and it just comes natural, that's priceless.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, we're going to switch to my Fab Four, just 4 fun questions. I can't wait to hear your answers here. Okay, if you think about leadership language, because it's another thing I love to talk about, what's a repeat word for you that shows up in a meeting? Is there a phrase or a certain word that you use when you're kind of motivating, or, take the example you just got through your team and hitting their big numbers, and what's a phrase or a leadership language that's kind of been anchored in your style?
I think I use the word love a lot. I love the idea. I love you for saying that. I love where we're going. I use that word a lot, but I got a lot of love to give. So that's a word I use. And I'm not afraid of using it. And I think that, leaders shouldn't be afraid of using that word, because oftentimes if some like this morning, one of the team members in the UK just reacted so brilliantly to kind of a new focus that we've got, and has turned his focus like on a dime. And I just said, I love you for the work you're doing. I love how fast you pivoted and how you've refocused. And I think we shouldn't be afraid of using that word. That's probably the main one.
Well, I'm doing the happy dance here, because I believe that has a place in leadership language. I think it has a place in business acumen, which you just said that you're using it and have used it. And who wouldn't want to hear that? That's amazing.
Great word.
Is there a quote that you have read somewhere, any juncture of your life, that's a hard word to say, that really has kind of sat with you and you've carried it with you in your heart?
Yeah.
Maybe it's shown up in your leadership. What's the quote and who said it?
I've had one outstanding mentor in my life. Really early on in my career, a guy by the name of Brian Clark. He was the CEO of Vodafone Australia, New Zealand, where I used to live and work. Brian was as much a father figure as a mentor. I just loved him to bits. He said, he told me once, if you're encountering a problem in your personal life or your professional life, the first place to look is yourself. What are you doing to contribute to this problem? Mm-hmm. And again, it's like other things, it's one thing to remember it. It's another thing to practice it. And, but it's such a great piece of wisdom. And I go back again to it. And when I see a problem, I try to say, all right, this may sting, but what am I doing to contribute to this problem? It's just great advice.
Well, and I find that leaders, again, at any level, when they are tapped into that height of self-awareness, it allows them to be holistic, which is what you've spoken of during this whole interview. And we always have a level of contribution. Sometimes we just don't want to turn the mirror to see how much. So that's a powerful one.
Yeah.
Okay, third question. Who's a leader? I want whoever's on top of mine, they could be living or they might have passed away. Who is a leader that inspires you? Maybe you've aspired to be the leader that they are. Who is that leader, and why are you inspired by them?
I'm not beautiful enough or powerful enough to aspire to be him, but Muhammad Ali has inspired me since I was a little kid. Absolute self-sacrifice, utter fearlessness, incredible communicator, could make someone feel as high as a skyscraper just by focusing 30 seconds of his attention on them. But ultimately, I think the role he played was huge in helping move things forward. So yeah, I just always adored him. Was very sad on the past.
I'm going to give you a goosebump moment. Are you ready?
Ready.
I had to go to Australia when I was 27 because I was working for the Australian Department of Defense. And on my way home, I think I was connecting, I forget what airport it was. And you know how you're walking through the airport and sometimes the two lanes can merge?
Yeah.
And guess who was walking beside me?
No way. Was it him?
It was him. And he had like a caregiver and he was really shaky. And I was just like, oh my God, do I say something? Do I not say something? I'm the 27-year-old Deb, right? And I was like, this is a once in a lifetime moment. And he just stopped. He smiled. And I said, I'd love to have your autograph. And he was really, really shaky. And he had like a briefcase and he put it down. And I had a business card. Like I was ready to get on a flight. So it's all I had. And his little shaky hand. And then he kind of gave me a half hug and told me to have a good day. And my husband was like, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this is the second time, like we've done over 250 episodes of the show. This is the second time that somebody has brought him up that he was so meaningful. And it always anchors me back to the memory of when I met him. He's a legend.
Yeah. And one of the many things he did so well was that when there was a difficult conversation, and he never shied away from difficult conversations, he used humor in such a heartwarming and kind of touching and alluring way. Just that smile and that ability to take a tough situation, a tough conversation, but still weave in some humor to kind of relax and disarm people a little bit. And he was a master of that. I can only do a weak impression of that kind of leadership, but yeah, he was something else.
Yeah, that's he was incredible, and it's funny how he keeps coming back on the show. It's amazing. Okay, my last question. I used to, on previous seasons, ask people to finish this sentence, and I decided in season 4, I want to turn it back on the leader that I'm interviewing, kind of like that self-awareness piece we were just talking about. So my last question is, how do you feel you're a heart-centered leader? And does it show up every day in your leadership as a CXO?
I think that I would like to think it shows up every day. I love body language. I love the fact we have Zoom now and Google Meet and all the other video tools, because now you can get a much better sense of someone, how they're really feeling, what else might be going on in their lives. So I try really hard to understand, how they are, how they're doing, what they're saying, and why they might be saying it. It goes back to that thing right at the beginning of our talk, right? Curiosity. Why did they say that? Why did they say it that way? What else might be going on? What might have driven them to say it in that particular way? And so, sometimes I'll kind of say, hey, can you hang back for a couple of minutes? I just want to ask you something. And it'll be to sort of say, what's going on? Why'd you answer it that way? So I really hope that I come across as that. Fatigue might sometimes get in the way, and I might be kind of just exhausted. But when I started this job at OpenSolar, Birchie, who's the co-founder and an old friend, said, was trying to persuade me to come on board. And I said, I don't want a team. I'm happy to join. I don't want a team. I'm done with that. And surprise, surprise, now I have the largest team in the company. It's about 35 people. But Birchie knows that he's a wise man, and he knows that I do love it. I love assembling a team of talented, passionate, capable, brave people. And I get so much energy from that. I sometimes liken it. I sometimes call them, I liken myself to a little guy sitting on his stagecoach going across the Wild West. And I got these beautiful horses, and all I got to do is try to keep them on the track because they have so much energy and drive. And I tell them that too. I'm not sure they may or may not appreciate that, but I get so much out of it, and they can see how much joy I get out of being part of the team and leading it. And hopefully that comes across.
Well, absolutely. And I can see why Steve wanted us to connect and why he thought you should be on the show. I think it's pretty evident. So thank you for being imperfect, and thank you for being heart-centered. And my favorite part of this conversation is that you use love in your leadership language every single day. And that to me just further shows that heart-centered leadership has always had a place in business acumen. It's just not every leader is willing to adapt that into their style, and you've made it evident. And I think that's why you've been so successful. So thanks for hanging out with me and opening season 4. It's been a delight.
Yeah, Devin, and thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing. It's really important to shine a light on this stuff. And the thing is, once you get inspired by it, you can't help but try to practice it. So great job for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. So we're going to put all of Patrick's details below in the podcast episode description. I hope you will go and check out OpenSolar. I think it's amazing what they're doing, especially with the climate change initiatives and doing the software for free. And just a reminder, because you get to see it behind me now, I'm done all my revisional edits on my book, and it's physically coming out in September. And I look forward to doing many fireside chats. So thanks for joining me for the opening of season 4 on Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership podcast.